see here.
There it
Yes, there
is.
we go. Now it's showing up. Okay. What's up, party people? My name is Sunny Ray. This is the Sunny Ray Show. Today I'm with Bryce. Bryce is calling in from where? California, right? You said?
California, yeah, the Bay Area.
The Bay Area. Awesome. So, Bryce, I guess, yeah, just to kick it off, maybe California Innovation Fund. What are you guys working on there? We'll keep it, maybe under a couple paragraphs for now, but then come back to it near the end of the interview again.
Yeah, sounds good. So the California Innovation Fund, we partner with founders coming out of the UC system, University of California. We invest in generally companies that are trying to make the world a better place, greener, cleaner, a little bit happier, healthier. And we donate half of our carry back to the University of California because we really want to power that flywheel of innovation. That's a little bit about us.
Interesting. Cool. So I guess, yeah, like I said, we're gonna get back to that one in a little bit. You grew up in Irvine, right?
Irvine,
You're
yeah.
Irvine, yeah. I think I drove through there. You've called it a fairy tale little land. What did that kind of childhood give you, and what did it cost you?
Yeah. So Irvine has, I always say, like the most parks per capita out of any city in the US. It's just very pleasant, great schools for kids and families. I think it gave me a pretty sheltered life for a long time. The good part of that is that you are very hopeful for the world and you see things in a positive light. The bad thing is you don't see reality as it is. And so when I first moved to San Francisco, there was a lot of shock factor living in the Mission and kind of seeing bums just outside your door and trying to interact with the world and be nice to everyone, but realize that everyone is coming from a very different place. But yeah, Irvine's very nice. I do recommend it for young families.
Yeah, what did happen to San Francisco? It's wild. That used to be my favorite place ever, and then something happened a few years ago, and it took a turn for Zombieville. But yeah, the rest of California is amazing. So your mom went from secretary to executive at Edison, right? So no college when she started. Your dad was the book smart one with a math degree. Which parent shaped your drive more?
Definitely my mom. She was always trying to fight for more and do the right thing. She was very morally driven. So I learned a lot. We went to church when I was little. I don't practice really, but anymore. But she was morally driven. She was corporate driven. She grew up in a family of 7 kids, and they struggled to have lunch money. And so, I'd hear these stories all the time. And then she was able to provide for me and my sister, which was really nice and great. Very appreciative of that. But then she would also provide for other family members, our cousins, nieces and nephews, because she didn't want people to have the struggle that she went through. So she worked very hard to get that. And then my dad, he motivated me a lot in the studies because he had gone and gotten his master's degree. So he was book smart, but my mom was kind of the more hungry, maybe a little bit of workaholic in the family.
Cool. I was gonna say, so you graduated with like what, like 2.77
Yeah.
GPA or something like that. So you're president of your fraternity, president of the interfraternity council. What were you optimizing for back then, and what did you learn from being competent, but maybe not like the top student?
Yeah. I would say I was probably optimizing a little around fun. I played a bunch of sports, a bunch of interfraternity sports and competitions. I was very popular in the Greek system. I was like up for Greek Man of the Year. And I think I was up for Homecoming King. But then I don't know. I didn't know how much I would use the courses in the future, and so I just didn't want to try that hard. I was of this belief that like I'm just going to go to college, I'm going to get this degree, and then I'm going to go start a really successful business or grow up in that business world. So I didn't worry about my GPA. And then I found that leadership positions were actually super informative. I feel like I learned more about leadership in my time in the fraternity than I have in any job I've had since then. If you have to manage 18 to 22-year-old boys/men, I would stick with boys. That's a very tough experience. You don't have a paycheck over their head. You don't have strict rules that they need to follow or anything, and you're trying to manage these people. So I grew a lot in that, and then my other leadership positions there, you learn a bit about politics and trying to make concessions and trying to find compromises. So I was really optimizing for that growth, that like interpersonal growth. And I would say I was very nerdy before college. So I was trying to feel how to be like social, like a social person at that point in time.
And then your first, I guess, real job was what, like PG&E, right? So you climbed to middle management. What did running an investor relations function at there teach you about, what you use today?
Yeah, so investor relations was real interesting because we had all these great initiatives at the company. Like we're making more solar panels than anyone in the US, more solar panels than anyone in California. We're making lower energy bills, more energy efficiency, all these really cool things that I was very motivated by. And then you go up to the corporate investor relations, they don't care. They're just like, what's our bottom line? What's the numbers we're hitting? What's our forecast for the future? And I was like, hey, but there's all these cool initiatives. Like people should know about these. And they're like, no, Bryce, no one cares. We just need the numbers. And so I was pretty dismayed seeing that early on in my career that, they really are more, everything's dollar oriented as you move up the chain. It's just that the value of the dollar and not the value of what's happening. So that's where I really kind of just doubled down on, I want to do something that adds value to society, and hopefully we can add value and make money at the same time. Because that makes the world a better place.
And then you hit a wall, right, at PG as well. Like everyone above you had an MBA. So walk me through the moment you decided that you had to go back to school.
Yeah, I was in my second manager position, and I was moving to corporate strategy, and I just realized everyone had MBAs, and the only way you're moving up the ladder is if a boss really likes you, because you're not going to win any competition outside of that if you don't have an MBA. It's just the screeners are going to screen you out. People aren't going to think you're smart enough. There's some bias, which I think is wrong, but is there in the system. So I realized I have to go get an MBA to move up the ladder to make more impact. And then in getting my MBA, definitely realized I don't think I want to be at a utility. It's too constrictive. There's too many layers of bureaucracy internally and externally. And so it was really eye-opening to get the MBA and learn from all the other students and professors at the school that really say, like, okay, if you want to do more and make more impact in the world, you gotta spread your wings, kind of thing.
And then I guess like halfway through your MBA, you quit, right? So you took a semester off, Bali, Peru, Cambodia,
Yeah.
meditation, journaling, coaching course. So what were you running from, and what were you like kind of running towards?
Yeah. So I took this interpersonal course called New Ventures West, and it's develops you spiritually, somatically, cognitively, emotionally, and relationally. These like 5 areas, and then it tries to sync you up across those. And so I had made a little bit of money with Bitcoin and Ethereum, and that's where I felt kind of some amount of freedom. And so I quit my job and I dropped out of school with the intention that I'd go back to school, and I did. But it was to learn more about myself and then to kind of open myself up to everything else that could be. So like my mom worked at electric utility, worked her way up. My dad eventually worked at the utility too. There was a point where all 3 of us were there. And my life goal was pretty much to outdo my mom, like not in a competitive way, maybe a little, but she put me up in a really good position in life, her and my dad. And so I should be achieving more because they set me up in a way that they were never set up. And so when I kind of went along that path long enough and learned enough in school, I was like, I don't want to go on this path. And that's where I guess I was running away from that path and running towards possibility that I didn't know. And so that's where I feel like that really deep personal dive that I did over those 6 months gave me a lot more confidence in myself, a lot less anxiety, a lot less social anxiety. It was really, really powerful to be able to do that, and really lucky that I had that opportunity.
And then you came back from Bali planning to start a coaching business. Instead, you started a hedge fund, right? So how does that happen?
Yeah, so I was coaching a few people at the time. I was going through this coaching program. I really wanted to help improve leadership in organizations because it had such a trickle down effect. Like how many people go home and complain about their work? And if those people weren't complaining about their work, they'd be having a better family life and maybe doing more things outside of work as well. And so if you had better managers, you'd have happier populace in general. And so that was my goal. In doing so, and when I dropped out, I had a friend who was a really good trader, and I worked with him a little bit, managed clients, and just saw how good he was. And in talking to potential coaching clients, like executives, I thought it'd be a lot better if I ran my own company first and had a lot of success. So I was like, okay, I could build this hedge fund, figure out how to do that, run this thing. And then once I'm successful, I can come back to coaching. And so I was just lucky having this really good friend who was really good at trading, and then kind of gutsy enough to take a move on that and make that move. And then I plan to eventually come back to coaching. And in my role now, I get to coach some founders a little bit. So I feel like it's partial finance, partial coaching, and a pretty good combination of all of it.
3 friends, a Zoom call, sometimes shirtless.
Yeah.
So walk me through the actual day you realized the strategy was working at scale.
Yeah, so I drove cross country with one of my friends, Brett Waker, and we would just challenge each other. We'd listen to a bunch of podcasts all day. You got a lot of time to talk if you're in a car all day. And so we pushed each other, and he was like, why don't you, we were running small clients at the time. We had a few million under management, which was a lot for us. And he was like, why don't you actually make a fund out of it? Why don't you do the thing? Why don't you just like stop playing small and play big? And I was like, okay. So it was on that trip. And then I got back from the trip. I laid out 3 options for the business partners for how we could scale the business. And the number one option was, let's make a hedge fund, and presented that to them, pitched them on it. And they're like, all right, how are you going to figure it out, Bryce? And it was just like, okay, I'm going to go. And so I used all my school contacts, kept reading, every blog or piece of information I could get. And we just dove in and decided to make a hedge fund. It worked out pretty well.
846% net returns, like number one performing fund in the world in 2020. $8 million to over 600 million in under 2 years. What did that year do to your relationship with money?
Yeah, that is a really good question. It was weird. There was some point in we started in March of 2020, and then we'd been running it before then, but that's when the hedge fund started. Sometime by October, November, we had tripled our money, and a little more than that. And then it was like, oh, we have real money. We became millionaires at that point in time, and it was wild because you're like, we didn't expect this. We didn't expect it that quickly. And so we felt, very proud of it, but we're just grinding every day, working really hard to try to do the next thing. So you don't notice it as much. But I remember sitting there eating a breakfast burrito with my dad one morning and just being like, this breakfast burrito is absolutely delicious, and it tastes the exact same. Like 6 months ago, this tasted the same. 10 years ago, this tasted the same. So no matter how much money I get, these simple things in life are going to taste or be exactly the same. And that was a pretty sounds weird, but it was an interesting revelation that you just have to value everything and appreciate everything that you have, regardless of how much money you have. You can't get rid of the boring or simple things in life. And then I watched with some of my other friends how I feel like money doesn't change people. I feel like money reveals their character. So I saw some people get, I would say, a little more sinister or a little more judgmental or a little more I'm better than you. And they're not. You have more money or you have less money. It doesn't mean you're a better or worse person or you're higher or lower on some scale. And so that was interesting for me to see that. And that's what I look for in people now is okay, regardless of where you are, how do you treat people and how do you treat yourself? And are you grateful essentially for the little things and the big things?
Yeah, gratefulness is definitely one of the biggest hacks, life hacks for sure, right? It pulls you out of dark places. It lifts you up higher when you're feeling good. It's always good. I'm still confused on the religion front, but my wife's a devout Christian, and
okay.
I love her. So I follow her to church every Sunday, or try to, maybe not every Sunday, but yeah, I love it. So you've said that luck is half made and half attitude, right? So can you pull that apart for me? What was actually luck, and what was preparation, finally meeting and opening?
Yeah. So with the hedge fund, I was super lucky to have this friend that was an amazing trader. And how did I know him? Because in college we played a computer game together, and I was the best among my friends, but he was better than me. So I of course was I want to be your friend. I want to learn from you. I want to get better. And so we became friends because I saw someone with a bunch of talent and I wanted to learn and grow from them. And then, I had a lot more kind of social acumen than him. So we were able to share a bunch of skills back and forth, and we became really good friends. It's because of that friendship that we had the opportunity to form that company later. And so creating that friendship and growing that over time, that was work, but it was also luck that we met. And then forming the hedge fund, was a lot of work. Also, like, it sounds weird, but COVID created some luck for us. We had this giant market downturn in March. The whole market bottomed and then it rebounded off really quickly. He was an amazing trader. We had a 73% March. If that was your year, it would be astounding. But we were able to take advantage of that. Lucky scenario from a financial perspective, terribly unlucky from a world perspective. But we capitalized on that, and then we were able to grow that fund. But if it wasn't for the hard work of putting it together, of him learning how to trade over decades, me learning how to work in finance and run organizations, then we wouldn't have been able to build this. So there was that bit of, we were able to make it, and there was that bit of, hey, there's a lot of luck in all these pieces aligning and timing aligning. Like, also the year we formed was the year of a bull run. So of course we have exceptional returns during a bull run because we could manage it well. So yeah, there's always luck and there's always hard work.
So you run the fund out of Puerto Rico, quasi-retired in your early 30s. Most people, would have kept just compounding, right? But you closed the chapter. Like what broke first, the work or the feeling?
Yeah, so we decided to stop fundraising as a fund, and that was part of my job, was fundraising and growing. And then the team, one of us had a kid, was having their second kid, and really wanted to dial it back. And so with that, we were like, hey, we've already had more success than than we expected in 5 years in this first 12, 18 months. And we've made more money than we need. So, okay, we can start dialing this down a bit. And we all kind of stepped off the gas. I worked with some others. I was consulting with other firms at the time, which was fun because I still wanted to be active. But I don't know, it was a weird New Year's that year. We were all separated from COVID, but then we were like, hey, we achieved so much. And we also struggled a lot. We fought a lot on the team here and there. But then it was just easier for us to kind of dial the business back and not keep going with it. And I think that gave all of us a social break that we needed.
CalFund gives 50% of GP profits back to the University of California, right? Like you mentioned. So most funds don't do that. Yeah. Why does that structure matter for the founders you back?
So a lot of the founders we back come out of UC Berkeley or other UCs. I think everyone has some form of allegiance to their college generally, unless you had some weird experience. And so they always want to give back. And this way is a way for us to support them and them to give back to the university. So sometimes there's rounds that are closed, they're oversubscribed, but we still get in because they want the Cal Fund in there because they know we're going to donate some back. And then I think everyone appreciates that we're promoting entrepreneurship at Cal. It's a really hard road to go down with entrepreneurship, but if you're in the ecosystem, it's really nice. I go tutor classes a couple nights a week. I go talk to students. I have Zoom calls with them, at least a few a week. And it's really, everyone appreciates that giving nature. And if you've read any of Brad Feld's books about, VC communities, it's all about give first and trying to help out. And the more people do that, the more I feel inspirational and helpful the whole community is.
So Fund One made 27 investments, Mammoth Biosciences, your 360 AI model-wise. What's the through line that you see across winners so far?
Yeah, I really think it's just always comes down to the founders. You have to have this person who, I hate the phrase now because you hear it all, runs through walls, makes things happen. But really, you're going to have 100 different obstacles, maybe 1,000, and you need someone who's going to keep jumping over those, keep getting up the next day and keep being excited about it. And when they hear no a few times, they don't get too down, they just keep going. And then they have really deep expertise and knowledge in that specific area. We found that that's a huge edge. If you have the passion and the expertise, you're really going to have the capabilities to push through something and the resilience to be able to follow through with all that as well. And we've seen that in every successful founder, some unsuccessful founders too, of course. Business is just hard, but that's really what we look for. We don't have any specific industry or sector that is doing amazingly well. I mean, they do happen. We've had a few AI companies that have done well, but um, that's just what we look for, is those amazing founders.
So I guess there's a story where Kurt Baer called, asked if you'd take over Cal Fund 2. You'd been, I guess, an LP for a while. So what was the question you asked Kurt that, told you that this was the right yes?
Yeah. So a big part of it for me was getting back to coaching and working with founders. I think human development and growth is one of the most beautiful things. And so I wanted to be able to get back into that, because I was kind of the genesis of all of my change was going to Cal and realizing I wanted to do that in the first place. So I wanted to be able to do that. And then I wanted to be able to work with a team that I thought was really fun to work with. You get to a point in your career, hopefully you're always at this point, but where it's really more important who you work with than the paycheck that you're getting. And ideally they're both great, but I wanted to work with people that I would want to show up to work every day. We'd be able to laugh, we'd be able to work hard, we'd be able to challenge each other. If we can do all those things, then that's a team I want to show up for. And then the mission of the Cal Fund's a mission I want to show up for.
You've said that you look for product founder fit more than product market fit at pre-seed. Can you unpack that a little bit? Like, what does product founder fit actually look like in the first meeting?
Yeah. So I love to get to people's why. Like, why are you really doing this thing? One product founder fit is, it's called Lindsay Hole. She works for Dispatch Goods. What they do is they have recyclable containers for packaged goods. And so you could have like a fourth trash can now, which is Dispatch, and you put all your used containers in there. She was a surfer in Hawaii. She walked down on the beach and she saw this like rainbowy, glittery sand, and she thought it was so cool. She walked over to it. It was just a bunch of microplastics. And she was a hardcore surfer. And so she was just like, I want to fix this problem. So she didn't know anything about goods, anything about recyclable material. She didn't even know what a pallet was that you ship things on. And yet she started this company, and she's just insanely dedicated to fixing that cause. So like, I think that's a really good example of product founder fit. Another person, she works for GCAI. They just had a major round. They're like valued at $550 million now. Cecilia Zanidi, she was a lawyer at Amazon, and her bosses told her, like, you need to go start your own company. She's just fiercely dedicated to systems, operational efficiency, smoothing things out and finding best ways to do things. And that's what GCAI does. It makes streamline all kinds of legal processes in organizations to make them more efficient, and like maybe drop your legal team from 7 to 2 or 3. And so she's just fiercely dedicated to that task. So it doesn't have to be environmental or, some kind of science thing. It can be anything that makes it so you as a founder fit with exactly the product that you're trying to drive. And that's that kind of deep expertise we look for to make sure that person's going to have the knowledge to outcompete someone and the resilience to outcompete that person, hopefully.
Interesting. So you guys have 3 themes for Fund 2: biotech, AI, and dual use defense tech, right? So of those 3, hello Eva, hug. Oh, someone's home from school.
Lovely.
I'll be done in a little bit, sweetie. Of those 3, which one keeps you up at night, like in a good way?
Yeah. I mean, I really like dual use because I think it's products that we're going to use in our day-to-day life. And then it's products that may be able to keep us a little bit safer too. So we have like a security company. We have Resemble AI. They do deep fake detection. So it's like all the AI slop you see on the internet, they can help track that out and see what's fake or not. And I think that's going to be increasingly important. And then I want it on my social media. But then also, if there's any kind of bad news that's coming, that we're getting a whole bunch of fake news, we'll be able to pick those things apart. And so, also, as we get to this world where everyone's more and more worried about World War III, like, how do we make sure that we can defend ourselves or our allies, or just anyone can defend anyone, so that we don't fight? I think that's a bigger thing for me, is that I'd love to avoid violence and avoid danger. I mean, the reason we do biotech is to help save lives. So the reason we should do defense is also the same reason. And then hopefully AI improves lives. But, all of them are very interesting.
So in a past lifetime, I used to sell robots for 8 years
wow.
of my career. The first 8 years of my career was spent selling robots in Berkeley, Stanford, and Georgia Tech, and hundreds of other universities for my customers. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was a fun little gig. Hey, so Berkeley's AI bench is real, right? There's Databricks, we've got Robot Learning Lab. What's coming out of Berkeley right now in AI and robotics that founders outside the Bay Area aren't paying attention to?
Yeah, so the Bear Labs, BAIR Labs, they're doing a bunch of interesting things. Last I checked, they're doing a lot of agent work and streamlining that. And then one interesting thing is like everyone's complaining LLMs are static, they don't learn as much, they don't record as much data. So trying to have LLMs or a new model even that will more naturally learn and grow over time. And it doesn't need a new kind of release to do it. So I think that is something that is very interesting. Um, well, I'm pretty excited for Anthropic in general because it feels like their leadership is a little more grounded. Like I think one of their leaders is I want to say like a history major or philosophy major, and like you're taking a much more grounded perspective on life in general if you're building it in that way. So I think as we get the AI systems to be more human focused in terms of what they're trying to produce and how they're trying to work with us, I think that'll have more consistently like human evolution evolving partnership levels as opposed to just these bots that we do these right now really fantastic things with. And then the labs, there's this place called Richmond Field Station. Most people don't know about it. It's about 100 acres. It's on the water in Richmond, like 15 minutes away from Cal. And they have AI, robotics, and drones going over there. So you can see different facilities that are doing that. They have testing too, air, water, and sea, or air, land, and sea testing over there. They have a nice little like wind tunnel area. So you didn't really ask about drones, but drones is there, and then also robots are there. So I think that's an interesting place that's not as well known now, but it's being really revamped. They also do biomanufacturing. So there's like 100 different startups there. It's a really cool, really unknown place.
You wrote a piece testing the VC method, right? Running the math on whether a 3 to 5x net return is even achievable, right? When you factor in dilution, fees, carry time. What do most LPs miss when a fund pitches them the whole 3 to 5x net?
I think most VCs, or a lot of VCs, I don't know if most, don't do the full math on how to get their portfolio to a 5x or 7x return and like what is really needed to do that. If you look at the math and you just run the standard, like I'm going to invest in 25 companies, they're going to have a 80% success rate, 85 or 80% failure rate, to 90, and then I need these multiples, I have this dilution. It's really, really hard to get to a 5x return. And that's why 5x and greater return is for the top decile of funds. And so I think if you're talking to your managers, everyone's hyping you on stories, like this company is great for these reasons and yada, yada. And that's all true. Those stories are true, but the potential of those stories mathematically is much more limited. And I don't think they're calculating that from a portfolio perspective or an individual company perspective. So whenever I ask other GPs, like I invest in other funds too, I really try to dig into what's the math for how you're going to make these returns, and have you looked at that? And I find a shocking amount are like, oh no, we just find great companies. It's like that. There's more to it than that. That's a really important part, but have you actually figured it out? And many haven't.
So your stated mission is to tenaciously support others, right, to achieve their dreams. 5 years out, if Cal Fund 2 has done its job, what does the Berkeley innovation ecosystem look like, and what do you personally walk away with?
Yeah. So 5 years, we'd be fully invested in companies. We'd probably be supporting anywhere from 25 to 30 different companies. Hopefully, I'd have pretty good relationships with all those founders or other people on the team would. I'm hopeful that that means we'd have more successful founders coming out of Cal and that we've grown that ecosystem. Cal's done such a great job of becoming the number one school for startup founders over a 10-year period, but we're seeing the ecosystem continuously grow. And that's because hundreds of people dedicate their time to go to school and volunteer. Many are teachers, but many aren't. They're just former entrepreneurs or former executives that want to get involved and help that community. And it's really cool to be a part of that. Whenever I go to events now, I probably know like 10 to 20, maybe 30 or 40 people at these events. And you keep seeing that number grow, which is really cool to see because that's going to help all the future entrepreneurs.
Awesome. Well, Bryce, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. I see we have a bunch of people tuned in as well. So thank you all for listening. Bryce, do you want to just leave maybe people with like the website and also maybe are you on LinkedIn? Like where do you write, or do you got a podcast or something?
Yeah, thanks. You can find me on LinkedIn, Bryce Gilliland. It's that name at the bottom. It is a one-of-one name, so you can't miss it with anyone else. And then I have a Medium blog that I think is linked on LinkedIn as well. And those are my two kind of big social areas.
Awesome. So Bryce, just maybe hang back for 1 minute. I'm going to bring this stream to an end. And thank you all for tuning in. Until next time.